Hey guys, so this is the next video in the series, and today we're going to be working with cross contour drawing. So cross contour essentially will be, and we've done blind contour, semi-blind contour, and as you remember, contour is essentially the lines, especially on the outside edges of the object, that delineate the object, the outside edges of the object, especially in reference to the background. But with cross contour, we're essentially going to be going and following with our implement, we're going to be going around the form, the three-dimensional form of the object using line. So what that means is, to begin with, I used a mechanical pencil. You can use a 2B pencil, you can use an HB pencil, something light. And you need to make a basic contour drawing. Don't get too involved, but do your measuring and do an accurate contour drawing. And at this point, you can use a ballpoint pen. It's actually really helpful in some ways. And when we work with cross contour, so I'm going to just, you're going to, you don't have to use too much pressure, but I'm just kind of, and we can work with line weight. You can, like I said, for things you want to emphasize, you can make them a little darker, like the edges of that ellipse. But as we look at the object, we can see this is a rounded form. So if we try to think of like a graph, or almost like a cartographic or like a topographical map, if you were to go around the form of this cup, your line would essentially follow like this ellipse, and your lines would follow around that circular form. So your lines are basically going to follow the three-dimensional form of the object. We're not really going for shading. You see how my lines are following the roundness of the cup? We're not really shading yet. Just be careful that and sometimes it's kind of hard. You might feel like you're just repeating lines, but really make sure you get that proper rounded area. You may want to even, you can see your eye kind of darkens that edge here. That contour seems to get a bit darker, so you can kind of see I'm just working that small dark areas around that contour. So as we look at the horizontal aspects of the object, it does curve near the bottom, and it curves slightly a bit at the top. Like it's not a sheer cup. It's rounded. So we have to kind of continue that form where it goes out, almost just ever so slightly comes back in. But then it's almost like when you get to the middle of the object, it's almost a straight line. You're just following the curves of the object. And once again, once you get down to this edge here, it seems to darken in just a bit. You can darken these lines just slightly. And that gives you a little bit more of an idea of weight. We're just following the roundness of this cup. And then as it gets closer to the bottom, it kind of has a steeper slope. So I'm emphasizing the steeper slope to that. See, they should be a little more rounded here. Should be more rounded. It's okay. And if you're using ballpoint pen, don't erase anything. I want to see how you shifted your cross contour lines. I want to emphasize that this contour comes in front of the handle. can even go around and do the inside of the cup if you want. You just have to be careful that you really make sure you get the full roundness. And this handle is interesting because this has got one face here and then it curves over the top. So how do we do that? We can see how that face and this comes over the top this way. And we're almost getting into talking about planes and planar hatching. So the way we would describe this is there's two different planes going here. I called it a face, but there's a face here, this side of the handle, and then the one across. So that's what we're emphasizing here. So with these, by using just these cross contour lines, you're just emphasizing the three-dimensional planes of the object. Now, if we look at this one, yeah, there's a plane here and then a smaller one on this side. So we can emphasize that. It's pretty small when it gets up here. So there's a plane here where everything overlaps. See where this comes inside. So let's mark that. So you're not really trying to shade this, you're just really trying to emphasize going across the three-dimensional form of the object with just lines. Especially if you look at that handle, we're not really going in for much detail, but we're just going across the object. So in some objects, like organic objects, like the seashell, the more planes you can find and delineate with cross contour, the better. So, you can delineate how it's rounded here, going across, and how it flares out here. But really, you're not shading, you're just using kind of almost an uninterrupted line to delineate the three-dimensional form of the object. And yes, with man-made objects, they're going to be distinct planes of the object, which we'll go more into in the next video with hatching and cross-hatching. So this was cross contour. Once again, you're just using an uninterrupted line to delineate the three-dimensional aspects of objects. And usually that has to do with curves or different directions in which the planes are falling. So if you're looking at like different objects, it's up to you to decide kind of instinctually if you're going across the plane of this object, what direction would your cross contour lines have to go? And you're trying to find, so if this aspect of the bottle here is more vertical, and you're going to go cross contour vertically here, if you're thinking about this as a three-dimensional object, this would be a horizontal plane. So your lines would follow the horizontal characteristic of that cup to cap, whereas this would be vertical. And then these here, you could even flare across horizontally. You could go around in kind of a dial. And then this would be a heavy vertical coming up here. It's a very vertical object. But this plane here, this cross contour, you can have a lot of fun with that. You could just go around in a dial almost. So that's cross contour. It's really not something that people use too often in fine art per se, but more in like industrial design in architecture. So yeah, have a crack at it. When you're all finished, it's kind of helpful to then erase all the pencil lines so you get a really clean look at what you've drawn. So that's a pretty clear cross contour drawing of that cup. So yeah, give it a go.